So, hello everyone, and welcome to this session today. On behalf of the Indo-Canadian Business Chamber, it is my pleasure to welcome you for this session on digital transformation in healthcare, a topic of great relevance today. The pandemic has caused a challenging situation globally, and healthcare establishments across the world are gearing themselves up and are already in the process of combating these difficult times. And digital health technologies and services are slowly emerging as the key solutions and answers, not only for COVID, but also for people suffering from other diseases. And this problem is as important and needs to be addressed urgently as well. Digital interventions and innovations are much needed in the healthcare ecosystem to increase the efficiency, healthcare delivery, and make medication more precise and accessible during times like this. We are very privileged to have with us distinguished speakers, His Excellency Nadir Patel, High Commissioner of Canada to India, His Excellency Ajay, Bisaria, High Commissioner of India to Canada, Dr. Sangita Reddy, Joint Managing Director of Apollo Hospitals, and Michelle DiEmanuele, who President and CEO of Trillium Healthcare Canada. They will give us important insights, both from the perspective of the government and from the industry on this very important sector. We are pleased to have other eminent panelists who will be deliberating on issues after the special addresses. To begin, I would now like to welcome His Excellency Nadir Patel, High Commissioner for Canada to India. He has been the driving force in the Canada-India Economic Corridor, helping trade between these two countries to reach great heights. With his guidance and leadership and the strong support from the Canadian Trade Commissioner Services, the Chamber has been able to facilitate and strengthen business ties between Canada and India across all sectors. Your Excellency, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Nadira, and to those at the Chamber for leading this fantastic initiative. Let me just begin by acknowledging my counterpart, His Excellency, High Commissioner Bisaria. Always good to collaborate and partner up on different events, and always good to see you and your leadership in Canada for India. Of course, I also wanted to acknowledge Dr. Reddy and Michelle DiEmanuele, who are no strangers to the Canada-India healthcare cooperation ecosystem. So thank you again for your leadership and also for participating in today's session. So many distinguished speakers and guests, both from Canadian companies and Indian companies active in this space, and we're looking forward to hearing from you throughout this session. I wanted to offer up a few informal remarks, and as I delve into that, let me just start off by saying that if there's one area in the relationship, a sector, an area of focus that is in my view, among the most important, it is the entire healthcare ecosystem. It's an area that has long held a lot of potential for greater collaboration and growth, despite the fact that there are many things already happening. And I think COVID-19 and the crisis that we're undergoing right now has brought that to the forefront, no time than ever before. But it's not just now. We're not simply leveraging or capitalizing on the challenge of the pandemic. I think back to a number of years ago when I first arrived here, and among the things that Prime Minister Modi had raised is how Canada and India could potentially cooperate in the healthcare ecosystem. At that time, it was around hospitals and infrastructure. And I'll touch on that. When our Prime Minister visited in 2018, it came up again as one of those emerging areas that we could perhaps do more. And there are things happening in the pharma ecosystem, in medical devices, biotechnology, infrastructure as well. But I think, this current crisis has really brought to the forefront not only ongoing, but greater potential cooperation. So we look forward to this being the beginning of many interactions where our High Commission here could collaborate with India's High Commission in Canada and support the activities of companies both ways. Now, I think the coronavirus pandemic has made it very clear that ensuring the health of our citizens is not only one of our biggest challenges, but of course among our biggest priorities as well. And I think innovation and international collaboration are critical to meeting that challenge. And that's what today's session is all about. India has demonstrated this already through this crisis, through its leadership in the supply of COVID-related pharmaceuticals, accelerated ramp up of PPE production, going from near zero to one of the largest producers in the world, and very notably, its vaccine production and development work, and how it has shifted rather rapidly in addressing the needs of this pandemic. Canada and India already enjoy a very strong bilateral relationship, and we're really poised to forge an even stronger and deeper partnership in the post-COVID world, whether it's through navigating the COVID challenges or beyond that as well. And I think the transformation of the healthcare ecosystem is a significant opportunity for closer collaboration. Now, India is one of Canada's fastest growing and largest trading partners. Over the last 5 years, the relationship from an economic perspective has grew at a record pace across every single metric you can measure. And our foreign and trade ministers speak often, are keen to strengthen our partnership, and our prime ministers have spoken a few times since the pandemic began. Our commerce minister and India's Minister of State for Commerce are collaborating this evening on another event as well, and that engagement continues. Our governments have supported each other through the repatriation of thousands of citizens from each of our countries over the last few months, and the collaboration through this pandemic continues on vaccine development, on pharmaceuticals, among other things as well. The overall healthcare ecosystem is very strong in Canada, it's strong in India, and that collaboration has a foundation, as I already touched on, but it is steadily moving up the value chain beyond a simple supplier-buyer relationship. In light of these new challenges presented by the pandemic, I think we're presented with an opportunity to leverage this relationship and move our collaboration to even higher level. And that's not to downplay the importance of the challenges that everyone's facing, but through challenge, there will be opportunities to see how we can meet those challenges by leveraging some of what is coming out of this. Let me just touch briefly on some of the specific areas that I think have high potential. Digital healthcare, and you're going to touch on this a bit today. While the use of artificial intelligence was already increasing rapidly, the pandemic has heightened the urgency of its development and integration into healthcare. Canada is well known to be one of the birthplaces of AI and is today recognized as an AI world leader. And you'll hear from a couple of our companies who are very active in this space shortly. The Toronto-Montreal corridor is one of the most dynamic tech and AI concentrations in the world. Looking at the West Coast, where we have Vancouver and the ecosystem out there, is also very robust. Some of Canada's premier universities have the highest concentration of researchers and students of deep learning in the world. We have some of the top computer science departments that compete with the world's best as well. And Canada has recently created the AI-powered supply chains supercluster, known as Scale AI, headquartered in Montreal, whose aim is to bring various sectors together to build intelligent supply chains through AI and robotics. AI and Internet of Things drive several key healthcare processes, such as advanced manufacturing, alternative drug delivery mechanisms, and pathological tests. And these technologies require big data. And while Canada is an AI leader, our population is small. Data gathered from India's large population can be used to train Canadian AI. This in turn can be used to provide services such as mobile healthcare, remote diagnosis, telemedicine, health analytics, all of which are very prominent in Canada's ecosystem. And I know we're going to hear a bit more of these specifics through some of our company speakers as well. Secondly, medical devices. Canada has the 8th largest medical device market, specializing in assistive devices and supports, devices related to healthcare, IT, medical imaging, implants, biomaterials, as well as diagnostic and therapeutic equipment. India has an enormous unmet demand for medical devices and is currently highly dependent on imports. Now, further, to a greater focus on local access to healthcare and telemedicine in the post-COVID world, an increasing incidence of lifestyle diseases will drastically increase the demand for diagnostic tools and medical devices in India in the coming years. India can take advantage of Canada's strength in AI to collaborate on developing and manufacturing smaller, more accurate, and portable real-time diagnostic tools. There's a real opportunity here to couple the strength of the Canadian medical devices sector with India's push for greater self-reliance in manufacturing. So it's not about just selling product, it's about collaborating, co-developing, and manufacturing. And that's what a true partnership is all about. And that's where Canada and India can do so much more. The third is on research and development. Canada has developed considerable expertise in the bioindustry sector with more than 200 companies and institutions involved in the drug development process. These companies specialize in a number of areas, including personalized medicine, genomics, proteomics, cardiology, oncology, immunology, neurosciences, vaccines, nutraceuticals, and the list goes on. A growing trend in the global pharma industry over the last decade has been to externalize drug R&D programs and manufacturing. This is great strategic potential for Canada and India, offering significant benefits to both countries. For example, India is a leading global pharmaceutical producer. India can leverage this by taking advantage of Canada's extensive commercially oriented research network, allowing Indian pharma companies to shorten development times and more easily take their innovations from labs to market. And Canada is ideally suited for conducting clinical trials because of its multicultural population, world-renowned research clinicians, and leading educational system, as well as a publicly funded healthcare system. And lastly, infrastructure, health infrastructure. Canada has over 30 years of experience in health infrastructure and delivering public-private partnership projects in the healthcare sector. Canada can offer advanced technology in information and communication and point-of-care capabilities, and consequently increase the quality of care over the last mile, which is a significant challenge in India in particular. In the education sphere, Canada can offer advanced nurses training programs in collaboration with Indian institutions to augment the delivery of healthcare in the primary and community health centers in India. So to close off, given Canada's expertise and capacity for innovation in the healthcare sector and its openness to international collaboration, again, innovation, international, it's only natural that Canada and India should be ambitious in pursuing future collaborations. Canada and India can together work to provide these solutions to many of the healthcare problems, not only faced in Canada or in India, but in the world. And that's why I'm so excited about this seminar, because a lot of what we're talking about, Innovation International, is what many of the business leaders that we'll hear from are actively engaged in. And what we would like to do is contribute to help facilitate that collaboration, to facilitate that growth. And in so doing, not only help Canada and India, but of course, the rest of the world as well. And you saw a tie-in through all of my comments. It's about collaboration, co-development, looking at how we can build capacity in both countries or share capacity and share knowledge across both countries. It's not about a one-way street, it's a two-way street in the way we would do this. So I leave you with those thoughts to kick off the seminar. Once again, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you to the Chamber for all the work that you're doing. And I'm looking forward to hearing how the rest of the session goes. Over to you, Nadir. Thank you.
Thank you, Nadir. Thank you for all your comments. And as you did say that you've outlined all the sectors which are potential collaboration and partnerships for India and Canada. And you said that we are going to rise above just buying and selling, and concentrate on collaborations and on partnerships to build and share capacity. So we are all geared for that, and I hope this discussion gives rise to much more in this direction. And with that, let me now welcome and request His Excellency Ajay Bisaria, High Commissioner of India to Canada, to say a few words. But before you start, I would just like to say that how you have taken over in such challenging times. And I think your expertise in foreign policy, crisis management, and economic diplomacy has been very crucial in these challenging times ever since you took over in Canada. On your session earlier with us, Mr. Bisaria, you had highlighted healthcare as one of the sunrise sectors in the world today, and which holds tremendous potential in the India-Canada business corridor. And His Excellency Nadir Patel reiterated the same. So, this is something that we have been looking forward to discussing with you and to hearing your insights. And I also want to thank you, Your Excellency, for lending your invaluable support to the Chamber at every point in these turbulent times. With that, I would now request you to give your address. Over to you, Your Excellency.
Excellency, kindly unmute yourself. You're still on mute. Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, wonderful. I think this is the most commonly heard statement in these times. Please unmute yourself. So I've said it a lot of time to others, so I'm glad I've been reminded of this. But thank you, ICBC. Thank you, Nadira, for putting together this very important sectoral conversation. Excellency Nadir Patel, great to see you here. And really, I'm redundant now because Nadir has spoken for both of us. We're in the same business. And he's talked about all the areas of collaboration that we've been talking about in the health and medical sector. So what I would do is maybe just make 2 or 3 big picture points on the healthcare situation before only adding to what Nadir has said in terms of what we could do in the India-Canada health corridor. Clearly extraordinary times. We've crossed the 5 million mark in the number of infections, but the good news remains for India that 4 million people have recovered. The fatality rate is well below 2% and affecting less than 0.4% of the population. So while we continue with unlocking with physical distancing, we are clear in our minds in India that we don't want to go back into a lockdown or stall the economy in any way, particularly when some sectors are reaching almost pre-COVID levels after this contraction. So the big picture for us is that we are looking at post-pandemic times from next year, and we're hoping for a V-shaped recovery, which gets us out of this crisis quickly. On 3 general points, I think, on global healthcare, I think this is a very important moment of reflection, which this seminar is part of, on how we take another look at global healthcare systems and national healthcare systems. Because this is a 2010, what 2009 and was for the financial system. We were having the same debates about how we reform the national financial systems and the global financial systems. Here, the spotlight will certainly be in a big way in the global health systems that we need to develop going forward. You mentioned digital health, and this, I just saw a report calling digital health a sunshine industry, which again, certainly it is. The focus on this sector now will come not just from the pandemic, which has brought the global health systems into focus, but also on the entire process of digitization, which, as Nadir said, has been accelerated. So we are now digitizing the way we interact, we socialize, we work, we entertain, or we consume entertainment, we consume education, we consume health. So this process that was perhaps going on will be accelerated. I was looking at the numbers of India's healthcare sector, and there are a galaxy of eminent experts who put together who are going to talk about that. But the sector was growing at 22% in the last decade, and COVID certainly has given it an extra stimulus. Also, we're seeing a stimulus for healthcare penetration, for medical tourism, for health insurance, for medical infrastructure, for increasing FDI in this sector. And essentially what India was hoping that all this will come together and bolster the Indian position and the Indian brand of being the pharmacy of the world. There's also the second, I think, broad point is that the government is very alive to this dramatic change. And if you look at the government support for this sector, it's been extraordinary, and there's an extraordinary focus on this. Clearly, India is committed to convert this crisis into an opportunity in multiple sectors through very fundamental and deep reform. And the attempt in the healthcare sector is certainly to come out of the crisis better than we left it, which means develop India as a global healthcare hub and benefit from all that. If you look at the expenditure, we're at a low end, which the experts tell us 1.6% of GDP. But compare that to, for instance, Canada is about 12% of GDP, and even more in the US. But what we do is plan to do is increase this number to 2.5% of GDP by 2025. In absolute terms, that will be a significant increase. And the share of healthcare in GDP itself is expected to grow to about 20% by 2027. So there's a significant focus on increasing both the spend and the expectation from this sector to produce returns. There's also a very important initiative, of course, which we launched in September 2018, which was Ayushman Bharat, which was really speaking one of the largest insurance schemes covering 500 million people. That was hugely timely. I think I heard Ms. Sangita Reddy speak about it at another conference, but this was something that really helped us to tide over some of the worst effects of this crisis. The digital infrastructure and the national health stack will become the backbone of Ayushman Bharat. The digital IDs and holistic digital systems should be in place for the entire ecosystem of beneficiaries, which is doctors, hospitals, insurance companies, private and public sector. So the conditions are all right for a perfect storm over the next decade in the public health systems. And this, the point I'm making, is driven by a strong awareness within government of this huge opportunity and, in fact, this huge challenge that is upon us. Thirdly, what COVID has led to is a sort of technological leapfrogging. So essentially, India's health systems were, of course, technologically challenged. They were behind those of the more advanced Western countries, but this is a moment to bridge that gap. And the pandemic has propelled us, I think, towards digital health globally. And this, I think, is again a phenomenon which we will watch and promote. For instance, telemedicine is growing at the rate of 31% now and expected to reach an overall level of $5 billion by 2025. Nadir mentioned artificial intelligence, IT integration, medical electronics. All these processes are on in India that should give us high quality medical care at home. And again, this is something which is, I believe, a more than $6 billion industry. So it has both a moral, if you will, as well as a commercial justification. Coming to the India-Canada corridor on health, this is, as Nadir said, a great deal of activity already going on, but a great deal more is possible. I had the opportunity to speak yesterday to Canada's Chief Science Officer, Dr. Nema, and we discussed vaccines. And the point, I think, which is clear to most of our partners is that no matter where this vaccine comes from, it would be scaled up and produced in India. And we have the capacities, we're rapidly scaling them up to be able to produce different kinds of vaccine as the race and the race to beat the virus with a vaccine goes on. Also, the other point that we keep making about India as a pharmacy of the world, India is certainly a pharmacy for Canada because we have an export of $300 million of both generics and formulations, and an increasing trend of Canadian companies looking at subsidiaries in India which could manufacture and export back. So again, this is something both Nadir and I work on very closely. The other issues of trained medical personnel, I think this is a huge opportunity that India can make healthcare affordable worldwide and beyond by trained medical personnel who could be exported. And I think the Canadian corridor is a great illustration of this because we have, this export of high quality human capital from India to Canada. We're the largest source country for students, for immigrants, for workers, and within that, nursing professionals. And we continuously engage in dialogue on how this manpower could be trained and skilled in India before we export it. So again, this is a huge area of conversation. Medical tourism, again, is something which we are familiar with, which is important. And I was surprised to find even for Canada, because I have anecdotal evidence of people telling me that the queues here are long because of the system. So we're going to India for surgery, and we find that the kind of quality of healthcare as the best in class and best in the world, apart from the fact that alternative systems like yoga, Ayurveda, and so on are being explored. And finally, medical technology. Nadir spoke eloquently about that, but this is something where we are having these conversations with Canadian universities and multiple other spaces. I was recently part of an inauguration and launch of something called Cyber Patient. This is a simulation software which was developed with the help of Indian programmers in the University of British Columbia. And it offers, I believe, state-of-the-art medical education in terms of a cyber patient, which is what would be to a doctor what a simulation is for a pilot, which will actually make the digital transformation in medical education. It would enable a lot of medical students to be working in the cyberspace with patients before they get onto the real ones. So I think that just illustrates both the challenges and the opportunities available to us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Your Excellency. As you said that at this time of crisis, we can do our best to turn it into an opportunity. And one example is, Tech Mahindra, one of our member companies, and also which has a large presence in Canada. They have just come out with a new solution called TechM, which is a device to find antibodies, to test antibodies. And this will enable, I think, a return to work solution, because I think they can real-time risk assessment and antibody testing for COVID-19 to enable safer workplaces and communities. This is what they said, and I think they're receiving an award for it as well. So this is how we are all coming forward to tackle these great challenges. So thank you for your words, Your Excellency. And now I will call upon Dr. Reddy, Joint Managing Director at Apollo Hospitals, as well as President at FICCI, one of India's trade chambers, who is a champion, influencer, and technocrat in the healthcare domain. Especially in digital healthcare transformation, Dr. Reddy is focused on setting benchmarks in futuristic healthcare projects, enabling IoT, AI, data analytics, and she has been a recipient of numerous prestigious awards for business and leadership in the healthcare industry. Over to you, Sangita.
So, namaste, everyone. It is indeed a great pleasure to be with you, Your Excellencies. Nadira, thank you, and all other participants of this most relevant, most exciting, and a subject which holds immense possibilities. Both Your Excellencies, I thank you for your inspiring, most insightful and apt analysis of the potential and the capability that we have. This morning, actually, on my walk, I was talking to a business associate who lives in Portland, Oregon. And he told me something very interesting. He's very close to Canada and does a lot of work with Toronto. And he said that there are more artificial intelligence engineers, experts, analysts, and data scientists in Canada or in Toronto than they are in Silicon Valley. And I thought that was tremendous. So Your Excellency, Mr. Nadir Patel, I'm very taken by what you said. I was thinking about the very same thing, that if we can combine the expertise that you have with the data which is in India, and a joint collective leadership commitment to solve some of the globe's large problems, I think we would be doing something of immense importance. I think the global burden of disease framework did not have the bandwidth to cover COVID-19. It highlighted what we're in and what can happen in terms of disruption. With over 29 million cases globally, the virus has disrupted supply chains. It's overwhelmed some of the most advanced health systems and disrupted much of the ground which was gained in the treatment of non-communicable disease, immunization, etc. And as per the Global Health Security Index analysis, no country was fully prepared for this pandemic. and collectively international preparedness is weak. And I believe the GHS score for 195 countries was assessed at 40.2 on a possible score of 100. So in India, they do say the pass mark is 40, but I think we've barely passed. So while this may have been called a black swan event, some people say that it is actually potentially the scenario of the world is a herd of stampeding elephants, and this is not going to be the last one. So let us gain collective leadership, strengthen our overall healthcare indice and our ability to work together to build a better world for everyone. And I think India, with 4.9 million cases, the private sector accounting for about 80% of the outpatient and 60% of inpatient prior to the pandemic, we must acknowledge the tremendous role of the government now in stepping up to this responsibility, while private sector joined hands as well. And we are working tremendously. And while the numbers continue to grow, the important fact is that the mortality rate has been significantly lower than many parts of the globe. And I've just, because many of the broad points in this space have been covered by both your excellencies, maybe what I will do will just share a little bit of what we did at Apollo in a context or a framework of 5 large trends or things that we can focus on, keeping the digital aspect in mind. And Nadir, I will be as brief as I can. But clearly, COVID has been an inflection point for the world, and we're witnessing this use of technology all over. And COVID is really driven what we thought would happen, but the pace of adoption has really been tremendous. And that is that digital is driving people away from hospitals, and care is shifting from the hospital to the clinic, from the clinic to the home, and from the home to a 24/7 access enabled by the phone. And new tools or tools which were available have now become mainstay, whether it's telemedicine, remote monitoring, remote ICU, point of care testing, wearables, and the fact that skill can be developed or gained very quickly, and a non-healthcare person can begin to play a very critical role in the overall treatment. Overall, telehealth apps have grown 170%. And things like remote consultation for flu or the virus, many of these have really tremendously grown. We've seen a 67% decline in personal doctor visits, but a 500% increase in online doctor consults. And 80% of telemedicine users in India over the last 4 months have been first-time users. And I think this is something that's here to stay. At Apollo, we were very glad to take a lead in introducing the Apollo 24/7. We launched it in February, not knowing the scale that the pandemic was going to have. And we had over 7,000 doctors and a tremendous capability with over 3 million users already there. But today we've completed over 50,000 teleconsults, over 75,000 toll-free calls giving counseling, and an AI-enabled bot with a code by to say that we have to begin to use these tools. And an integrated strategy of Kavach, which is called a protective shield, had the risk score, the call center, fever clinics, stay isolated in hotels which were covered by telemedicine, stay-at-home solutions, and then, of course, the advanced treatment options, where we dedicated almost 2,600 beds out of our 10,000 beds for COVID treatment. But truly, e-health is here to stay, and there are tremendous, a range of possibilities which will happen through this. But I think the important thing is that we have to strengthen the COVID-related care, but also the non-COVID care. And I really want to highlight this, whether it's TB and the fight against TB, we may be set back by 3 years in this. Cancer, cardiovascular emergencies, 31% of cardiovascular emergencies have not reached hospitals during this time, and cancer treatment and diabetes care have been disrupted as well. While the good part of it is that the increased health awareness and the overall focus on health, wellness, and sanitation may tide us through, it's important for us to get back to normal. And digital will play a very, very big role in this. And I look forward to artificial intelligence, blockchain, IoT, the IoT of medical things, all getting integrated into new and innovative solutions while we parallelly accelerate the use of science. The pace that the vaccine is developing is something which I think will stay with us as a learning for all other research development. From digital, I think another very important area which His Excellency Mr. Ajay Bisaria spoke about was the strengthening of the healthcare workforce. And here I want to talk about this, not just India's digital capability, but also our demographic dividend with a large number of young workforce, which we can train and bring to Canada. I want to say that we're working very extensively with the United Kingdom and also setting up in UK a center of excellence for paramedical education and training, where Indian trained paramedical specialists, nurses and doctors will have a short retraining and recertification so that they become workforce ready. And this is a model we'll be happy to explore setting up in Canada as well. I think that digital is redefining the skilling needs for this distant economy, and the use of e-learning, simulation techniques, etc., is going to play a significant role. Here I want to state again that during COVID, we trained almost 1,400,000 people in COVID as a quick program to familiarize health workers and public. And this was done completely online. And then created an online training program in partnership with Boston Children's Hospital for how to use a ventilator, which included content, simulation, training, and a one-on-one buddy system for first-time users of ventilation. So many, many new models are developing. The next and critical one, just looking at the extent of non-communicable disease, is the significant opportunity for the world to strengthen digital therapeutics. Over the last 20 years, SARS, MERS, Ebola, and now COVID have shown us the immense significance of preparedness and also of research. I think if we evolve a crisis response during outbreaks for an integrated mode of preparedness, response, recovery, and use collaboration, sustained investment in digital therapeutics and diagnostics, all these are very, very interesting opportunities, because it is proven that digital therapeutics brings down the burden of disease by ensuring and enabling compliance to critical parameters, thereby enabling someone to have their diabetes under control or their COPD under control, or bring down their risk factors to cardiac. Moving on very quickly, I'm aware of the time. I think I want to also quickly highlight the importance in this shifting geopolitical scenario and the transforming supply chain. So not only should we look at India as a great potential manufacturer, when we began in February, India produced less than 10,000 PPEs per day. Today, we're producing 4.5 lakh PPEs every single day. So this capability is something which is quite outstanding. The drug and pharma point has already been covered. I won't re-emphasize on that, but I also like to add the joint scientific research and what is being called the WHO Solidarity Trail is something that we would look forward to strengthening in the India-Canada relationship. I think that by accelerating this global cooperation, whether we're pursuing risk assessment, rethinking resources, accelerating digital, finding ways to minimize the divide between the haves and the have-nots, and sharing shared rules of governance, there are many things that we can do together. India's conducive digital health policies and our high level of penetration, whether it's the over 500 million active internet users, which is growing at the rate of 35%, or the fact that our telemedicine market, which was predicted to be about 32 million, is now expected to cross 5.5 billion by 2025. Many things have happened, and on Independence Day, actually the Prime Minister Modi launched the NDHM, which is our National Digital Health Mission. So there will be much to be done in the space of technology, upgradation, innovation, partnerships. I invite all of you to come in to explore the opportunities in India. In conclusion, I think that COVID has really given us an opportunity to reflect, to reimagine, and to re-strengthen our healthcare system. We must seize this opportunity today. R&D for POC, innovation on new and emerging technologies. India is a sandbox for innovation. And once done in India, we can grow with speed and scale and therefore help to cure and heal the world. There's an urgent need to build resilient healthcare systems. Collaboration is really the name of the game. And in that aspect, we look forward to multi-stakeholder partnerships between governments, policymakers, private sector, academia, research, and society at large towards a healthier world. I wish all of you good health, a safe coming months as we all battle together, and a quick recovery on the economic side. All the very best, and namaste, and thank you, Nadira, for your great work. And FICCI stands connected with your organization as well, so that we can continue to explore between ICBC and FICCI various ways to move forward. Thank you very much. Namaste.
Thank you. Thank you, Sangita, for your insights. They're very, going to be of great value and use to all of us who are looking forward to the partnership between India and Canada in the healthcare. I'll quickly move on, as I know that both the High Commissioners have a time limit. So let me go on quickly to Michelle DiEmanuele, who's President and CEO of Trillium Health Partners and has been active in the Canadian public and private sectors, leading large-scale change and cultural transformation. Michelle is in the Hall of Fame of Canada's top 100 most powerful women and was recognized as a top 40 under 40. Michelle, over to you.
Thank you, Nadira. Of course, going last means that everybody has made all of my points. So what I think I'll do in the interest of time is actually go back and maybe emphasize from the previous three speakers, the things that I think as we move forward, we should keep really first and foremost in our mind. I want to first acknowledge that we're even having this conversation today. It would be so easy, given what many of us are dealing with right now, to say, let's think about that later. And I think just the fact that the leaders and the businessmen and folks who are listening today and watching, you've really made a commitment, not just to today, but to tomorrow. And I think that can't be underestimated, because if we're going to actually make progress, as His Excellency, Mr. Bisaria said, if we're going to actually take advantage of this perfect storm, we're going to actually have to lean in towards that and not just ride the wave, but actually make the wave happen in a way that is much more productive than sitting back and having something done to us. So I think that's an important thing to just acknowledge the ICBC and the work that you've done to just put this together and to force that conversation. Many of you have talked about all of these things that constitute this perfect storm. If you think back to pre-COVID, and my colleague, Ms. Reddy, who talked a lot about some of the other transformational things that had been going on, we would have been talking about the internet and robotics and AI and blockchain. She started to talk about that in her remarks. And I was going to make the point that really COVID has become another transformational pressure point for us. It's not new, as Commissioner Patel said. It's just an additional component to those transformational pressure points and that motivation that we've all been participating in prior to the most recent months ahead, because this is not new for us to be having these conversations. Again, Commissioner Patel talked about decades of work that have gone on, and this really is a very important moment for us. And again, I think as innovators and as folks who've been co-creating for many years, you know that there's only two choices in these moments. We can either embrace it, or we can retreat. And I think what we're hearing over and over again, that this moment to embrace is becoming more and more not only necessary, but essential if we're to recover on so many other fronts. My sister hospital, Apollo, was talking about not just healthcare, but she was talking about housing, the economy, and so many other aspects around the ecosystem of healthcare where this, this transformational call to arms is going to be even more necessary in these moments. And again, His Excellency, Mr. Bisaria, spoke about that as well. I just want to say at Trillium Health Partners, we're embracing, we're not retreating. And I know Dr. Morra is going to talk a little bit about that in the next part of the session. But like our sister hospital, Apollo, we've had to, in the moment, embrace change and transformation and use the digitization of, again, I'll take one of the words of our speakers, of our life in general, not just healthcare, but in generally everything we do. And that has been everything from, again, our sister hospital, Apollo, spoke about the whole moving to completely an e-health environment. 80% of all our ambulatory care, our clinics, moved off onto online or other sources of delivery, even into the community. For years, we had been talking about really moving out into the community. Our whole strategy at Trillium is about to be a hospital with no walls, to have permeable membranes so that people can be going back and forth in a much more seamless way. And in the better part of about 21 days, what we had been working on for 9 and 10 years happened because of this transformational opportunity and pressure point. That has meant by its very definition, and we talked about that with some of the speakers, the breaking down of silos. One of the biggest barriers to being able to advance some of the partnerships that we'd like to advance, new technologies, new corporations and companies emerging in this space. It has created an ability to co-create and integrate solutions, again, in a way that wasn't possible, sometimes out of sheer survival for these smaller and medium-sized companies that we've worked with, but also just because the opportunity now presented in a way that never was before. It hasn't just been on the digital space. And again, I don't want to repeat all the things we've done. I think, again, this was provided by Sangita. But I do want to talk about the byproduct of moving on digital. The byproduct of that has also been in changing our expectations. And I say this with great respect to my colleagues in government. As a former government deputy minister, one of the greatest gifts you can be given in government is the ability to move bureaucracies faster. And I think one of the things that this environment and the move to digital over the last several months has done for us as a public sector environment is to create a level of expectation for change and for being much more service-oriented to the public and not giving reasons and putting barriers in place to stop that. And the example I use is this. Well, the digital movement during COVID has been unprecedented. It has forced an equal and important pressure on change around infrastructure. In our home province, it used to take us 48 months to build a long-term care facility. By virtue of what has gone on and that technology pace of change has had this byproduct to force that same pace of change in other parts of healthcare. We are now building a long-term care facility in 14 months. We've gone from 48 months down to 14. Unprecedented again. So I just want to draw that to everybody's attention about the byproduct this work can have in other parts of the work government does. I want to focus, many talked about all of the opportunities. I'm going to talk a little bit about the barriers. I think they were nuanced maybe a little bit. I want to come at them a little bit more directly. There is no doubt that the fragmentation, at least in Canada, while we are a health system with a single payer, there are silos like any large system. And so those silos have started to break down, as I just referenced. We need further breaking down of that, and strategic investing can help do that. I know Dante's going to talk a little bit about that, I'm sure, on the panel. And so with that, I think we just have to acknowledge, even more so in these times where we have debt and financial burden because of our fight against the pandemic, we have to make sure as we move forward, our investments are very strategically placed that advance not just some of the things we're talking around, the move to digital and to whether it's e-health, new technologies, et cetera, but it's also helping us do that in the most effective way possible. That means that we have to actually solve real problems. As a CEO in Canada, I don't know what others experience, but as a CEO in Canada, if I went to my inbox today and I looked at all my emails, I know there will be a dozen to a half dozen emails about the latest and the greatest thing that I am not using in this hospital. The problem is it doesn't solve any of my problems. They solve other problems for other people. And so as we look at efficient investing, we also have to look at the efficiency of how we define problems, how we build and co-create solutions that actually are solving real problems for real people. And again, I know we're going to talk about that in our next session, but as a teaser, I just want you to really think about the problem definition as we move forward and how we use technology to actually attack that. Lastly, and again, I apologize to my colleagues in government, but it would be remiss of me to say that while I know you will all say we've made huge progress in the area of regulation, we still have room to go in terms of streamlining and removing barriers around regulation that wear innovators down, that wear organizations down, so that they can't get to market or they can't find those partnerships as quickly to co-create. Our colleagues in New Brunswick and other places I know are working on those things. Having said all of that, and those are the three barriers I particularly wanted to focus on, I do want to say, and I want to echo a few points with respect to our strengths. I do believe in, and having done some work with both of our governments in both India and Canada, I do believe we have environments that are very, very conducive to our success. The fact that we have both of our commissioners participating today is just such an important, both real and symbolic gesture around how important this conversation is. And I want to thank you for that. I know your demands are many on any given day. I want to also talk about talent. We've heard a lot about the upskilling of talent, the building of talent. I thank you for the shout out to Canada around our talent in the area of medicine, engineering, computer science, AI. We have a collective wisdom around this table that is, I think, just really, really ripe for amplification and harnessing as we try to look at how a partnership can emerge even stronger. I actually think our sizes of our two nations is our strategic advantage. If you look at the size of India, 1.4 billion, and we look at Canada hovering in around 35, 36 million, one would say that maybe that partnership looks unbalanced. I think it looks highly strategic and highly complementary when I think about the ability to co-create, test, particularly with the diversity. I'll speak about my own local catchment area, one of the most diverse areas in all of Canada. And I look at the scalability between the two countries and abroad. So I actually think our size and our difference in size makes us innovative, nimble, and scalable. Diversity I just touched upon, so I won't say more than that, but it is an important part when we think about both the marketplace, trials, and testing. I want to say something about our values. We haven't talked, nobody actually mentioned the values of the two countries and of the two health systems. And I think values in any partnership are extremely important. And I want to talk about one value in particular is the value of humility. I believe that the value of humility is an essential value when building partnerships, when co-creating. But we also share another value, the value of innovation and the value to have great dreams and aspirations. And those two things coming together can be quite magical. And one might say, you know, how do you prove the value of humility? And I got a picture in my head with respect to Canada. And I think about all the work Canada has done in the aerospace industry. And I know every time I think about NASA, we think about going to the moon and the moon shots and Jupiter recently in the news. I always think about the Canada arm off the space station. The humility created the Canada arm, the aspiration, the partnership. And so I believe that that is also something that's very unique to our two countries, to our two health systems, and to the people around this table. I think we have the ability together to do, you know, just very, very big things by thinking about how we harness not just our hardcore skill expertise, but the values that are underpinning how we work together and how we aspire to do great things for our populations. So maybe I'll just conclude with a couple of final things. And I've tried to, as you can see, I've tried to pull in many of the things that have already been said rather than repeating them specifically, but trying to tie them together. I'll come back to Mr. Bisaria's comments about the conditions for a perfect storm. I think this is a really important piece to anchor on, although I'll pull off some other language we used. It's the conditions for a perfect sunrise. And that is to say that if we can come together with some real recognition of the barriers and that collectively we attack those barriers to create pathways for success, that if we together really identify key problems that need to be solved, not the ones that people want to be solved for other, maybe self-interest reasons, but really the needs of our populations. And we then build those relationships, those co-creating relationships to create both product, marketplace. I actually think this conversation, and today we will look back on it and say, we started something very special. And I know, Nadira, we have had this conversation over the past 18 months. And that conversation 18 months ago led to this conversation and many more. And so I would just say, well, in all of the pressures that we're feeling in this very, very new normal that we are coming to adjust to, that our continued effort to focus on today and tomorrow is an essential element if we're going to make the conditions for a perfect sunrise a reality. So I will now turn it back to you, Nadir.
Thank you so much, Michelle. As you said, that we're not talking about today, we're talking about tomorrow. And I just want to assure all of you, while thanking you, Sangita, and both the High Commissioners, that you know, your time here today, your words here today are not going to go in vain. We are not going to take this just as another discussion. We are going to take this as a step forward. So I want to give you that assurance. And with this, I want to thank you all again. And I would like to welcome our panelists and hand it over for the next session. I would like to hand it over to my colleague, Vikram, to please take the discussion forward, because we're looking forward to hearing from the panelists and the experts on the way forward in digital transformation of health. So over to you, Shavik. And thank you once again, Dr. Reddy and Michelle, for your addresses, and assure you that we will work together.
Great pleasure and all the very best. Namaste.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nadir. I won't take too much of a time. I will pass it on to Sowmya, but let me just, for those who have joined into the audience in the last couple of minutes, we now proceed to an interaction between our eminent panelists on what are the actual transformations, transitions taking shape in the healthcare domain, the overall purpose why a robust digital health system is required, We welcome our panelists, Dr. Dante Morra. He's President and Chief of Staff at Trillium Health Partners and a recognized leader in hospital process improvement. Ms. Vinita Sethi, Senior VP, Chief Public Affairs Officer at Apollo Hospitals Group. She represents Apollo in key committees and industry associations, as well as as a General Council member of Nat Health. Sergio Calvo, President Jubilant Radiopharma and he's also a global leader in development and commercialization of radiopharmaceuticals. Dr. Michael Byrne is CEO of Satisfai Health and founder of AI4GI. Currently, he's a clinical professor of medicine at the Vancouver General Hospital, and he's also a leading physician expert globally in artificial intelligence. To moderate this session, we have Ms. Sowmya Srinath, Director, Transformational Health at Frost & Sullivan. Ms. Srinath, may I request you to take this on from here?
Thank you, Shamik. Good evening, everybody. So here we go, and we had a great speech by all the three eminent personalities. It was insightful and set the tone right for the panel today. So with that as a background, I will straight deep dive into our topic today, digital transformation of healthcare. So this is one industry that is probably always undergoing transformation. And interestingly, the pace of the transformation or pace of the parameters that are driving the transformation is much faster than the transformation itself. So even before something succeeds and becomes scalable, there is something new comes up larger and much more impactful to have a significant impact on the healthcare system. So that is how well this industry is supported by companies and R&D investments and incubators and government bodies. So here we are today to discuss about how digital transformation of healthcare has been impacted and is going to change the dynamics of healthcare in the future. So with that, I wanted to highlight that we had conducted a survey with a set of people, and we wanted to assess what are the top 9 parameters that actually supported the transformation. And we came up with these, the answers that came back were these. So predictive and prescriptive medicine, that's the personalized medicine, precision health, data and analytics, redefining treatment models, IOMT, healthcare consumerization, anytime, anywhere care, that's the virtual care umbrella, and value-based, outcome-based treatments, and information transparency. So these were the top 9 parameters that various stakeholders evaluated as what's the impact on the healthcare transformative parameters. Now, with that as the context, now I want to look into what do you think has happened in this digital health space during the COVID times. So I would like to ask Ms. Vinita Sethi on how did COVID-19 transform the healthcare industry and digital transformation acceleration in this era? Can you give us a brief about that?
Yes, Sowmya. In fact, I think Dr. Sangita Reddy has already covered most of the Apollo initiatives that we have taken. But let me just take you back one step to tell you that, for instance, the group that I work with, Apollo Hospitals, already had a very strong digital health model. We actually had pioneered the space of tele-ICUs a long time back. And you'll be surprised to know that we were doing remote healthcare in really far-flung areas of India, including 12,000 feet in Himalayas, where we had an eICU, which was being operated with the connection with our digital health team sitting down south. So for us, this was something, when COVID happened, the entire inflection point kind of helped us pole vault immediately into the needs that needed to be catered to because of Corona. This started not just from giving care, but it started right from the point of the risk assessment scan. So we had, in fact, in February launched an omni-channel called Apollo 24/7. Now this was an app which was integrating everything from your teleconsults to pharmacy needs to your needs for diagnosis, etc. So the app, the Apollo 24/7 app, helped us immediately launch an AI bot, with which about 15 million downloads is a huge number that happened, and people were able to take a risk assessment to see how or whether they need to go to the fever clinic, which Sangita just mentioned, or they need to immediately see their predisposition towards corona and get the treatment accordingly. So we were able to do what I could say very safely, a kind of triaging from the point of diagnostics. And from there, our technological intervention actually rapidly moved towards virtual medicine and other interventions that were happening both on the demand and the supply side. So on the demand side, we were catering to the patients. We were catering also in terms of technology to see the capacity of our hospitals. We have 70 hospitals across India to see what kind of beds were available, how were we able to staff them. All this was being handled digitally. On the supply side, thanks to the digital models that we had, we were able to understand all our, inventories, the stocking, the deployment of our staff. This was a high pressure period where we needed skills in, say, handling of the ventilators, mechanical ventilators. And again, as Sangita mentioned, we immediately introduced e-simulation courses to ensure that we were able to upgrade and reskill the staff to handle things like ventilators. Then, on the inventory side, the way we were able to handle everything through digital tools really created for us a model of stocking all the essentials from PPEs for our doctors to the requisite medicines. Today, we are moving again with the government and various stakeholder consultations, also towards the vaccine development. So in short, I would say, starting with the diagnosis, with the triaging of patients, whether we created, isolation clinics or we created fever clinics, we were able to do a lot. And the most critical area of triage was having the non-COVID patients continue with their treatments in the hospitals. As you know, this was one area which got really affected. All the elective surgeries were put off. People were not visiting hospitals for, their cardio or onco monitoring. There have been a lot of shortfalls even in the area of vaccinations. And again, as it was mentioned in the panel, this could really put the progress we have made years back in non-COVID treatment areas. But in terms of COVID, I must say that although all this was moving, there were areas where there were lots of challenges to ensure the safety, not just of our patients, but also of the healthcare staff, to ensure that we are still able to, and we are still convincing our patients to visit hospitals, but the teleconsults and the telemedicine are doing a phenomenal job of actually, and the numbers have been shared with you, of connecting patients with the doctors. So I would just say that there are two things that COVID has created an impact in the healthcare. One is the technological interventions are already playing a phenomenal role, and they will continue to play, from surveillance to tracking apps, virtual medicine, e-diagnosis, and other interventions. And these will be increasingly informed by population intelligence. And this is where I see a lot of opportunities between India and the Canadian corridor. The second thing is there has been a behavioral change in the way people are seeking healthcare. And it's not just that people are increasingly opting for telemedicine apps, but even for delivering of the essential pharma products of drugs and medicines. And new patient care virtual tools are actually getting integrated almost on a daily basis in our apps. As we see the demand, we keep integrating these. Sowmya?
Yes, thank you, Vinita. So it was very insightful, and you touched upon 2 points that I will, start discussing further on. One is AI bots. So artificial intelligence is an integral part of healthcare today. There was somebody, some intelligent person had said, when you sign up to play in the digital health space, it is actually a contract that you're signing up to say, I am going to leave a positive impact on the health system or the healthcare that I'm trying to provide. So that is the impact digital health can provide in all these tough times. So coming to AI bots and touching upon how AI can improve diagnostics, can I actually request Sergio to give us insights on your views on how do you think AI is improving diagnosis, and particularly moving away from the non-healthcare, non-clinical IT that was used in hospitals for efficiency solutions to now the clinical aspects. So can you give us your views on that?
Yes, first, it's an honor to be in this panel. I represent a company that it's called Jubilant, Radiopharma. We are part of the Jubilant Pharma, and we are part of a very large Indian conglomerate called Jubilant Bhartia. My division, Radiopharmaceuticals, is in Montreal, Canada. So I think I'm right in the intersection of your forum here with a special interest. So in radiopharmaceuticals, we are also another intersection here between medical imaging and pharma. So we use small amounts of radiation, for those unfamiliar with nuclear medicine, to diagnose and treat disease. And one of the major areas of artificial intelligence is how to improve medical images, how to improve efficiency of medical image interpretation, how to improve accuracy of radiology, and so on. So my perspective, we heard so many holistic visions today. So my perspective will be for a very special, narrow theme within this context, but a very big one in terms of potential. So medical images are used in probably 50% of diagnoses today in the world. Most of the developments in artificial intelligence in medical images are thought to be doing the work that the radiologists do. But in reality, there's a lot that AI can do simply to improve the quality of the medical images. When we take the data from the systems and reconstruct and render images, there are many processes that can be improved using neural networks. And those are much easier to do than asking a system or a computer to interpret the images and generate results. So AI can be used in diagnosing disease in so many levels. And there's so many investments, collaborations, and steps we can make to perfect this process at all of these different levels. One example related to COVID, because COVID was a theme that was spoke about many times today. In computer tomography, there are many initiatives out there to train neural networks to help physicians segment disease, identify abnormal areas of disease, and try to make a first assessment of what that patient may have. So immediately after COVID started, companies working on artificial intelligence systems for computer tomography started training their neural networks to identify COVID. And there are certain algorithms out there that can identify COVID in CT scans with more than 95% accuracy. So this type of algorithm, although has to be always monitored by a physician, can certainly do a tremendous amount of help, triaging large number of patients, reducing costs. If you eliminate many of the normal cases that wouldn't have to be looked at by a physician, if you do this in a large scale, and can be applied in relatively short term. In our diagnostic imaging industry, the potential for those algorithms is immense. And one point that I would like to highlight that was also commented today, collaboration is the key word here, because small industries like mine, I have a small group of people working in Canada, and we have a vision for artificial intelligence algorithms that could improve the quality of our products. We make radiopharmaceuticals that are used in nuclear medicine. And I have a vision, I'm starting a digital program to develop artificial intelligence that will enhance the clinical power of those drugs. My vision is that in the future, those algorithms will be even more valuable than the drug itself. Some of those molecules will become generic in the future. Most of what we call intellectual property today could change completely if the shift goes into artificial intelligence algorithms that will enhance the power of our diagnostic drugs, that will enhance the power of diagnostic imaging, that will make the physicians work faster. But I don't have the resources. I don't have access to enough data scientists specialized in healthcare to develop these. I don't have access to enough data to do this. So collaboration is a key word. And the bureaucracy and all the barriers that exist for us to get access to resources and to data, the more we can reduce those, the easier, the faster we will get to a place where we can use artificial intelligence to accelerate diagnostic of disease. One data point that I collected yesterday, in the UK, this is the same for the US and probably the same for many other countries. In the UK, the number of radiologists increased only 5% between 2012 and 2015. The number of CT scans and MR scans that they read increased 30%. So it's an indication, and I think we can assert that in many countries, the demand for radiology is higher than the growth of the number of radiologists. So increasing efficiency through digitalization, through AI, is more than a luxury. It's going to be a need for most, not only emerging countries, but every country. So we need to accelerate the adoption, the development, the acceptance, the education around AI. One topic that I usually face is, how can we trust it? What kind of decision can we trust AI systems in the short term? Depends on the decision, I would say. We don't trust medical students, for example, to do surgery, but we do trust them to do stitches in the ER rooms. So depending on the scope we give to an AI algorithm, we know very well what it can do. We can measure the efficiency, we can measure the accuracy, so we can define narrow scope applications for AI in the very short term and give the AI algorithm the right scope of responsibility. And another word that was used today is embrace. And I think the best way that we can do to accelerate this is embrace the technology, remove our fears, focus on harvesting its potential instead of just putting barriers or having fears around it. Sorry, I think I answered the question a little long, but I just wanted to say a few important points.
You answered it correctly, and in fact, you gave us insights that leads me to the next question. So there are AI that can drive operational efficiency and access, including the clinical aspects, but there are also products that can improve the accuracy and reduce the human effort involved in errors and other misdiagnoses. So I would like to now ask Michael Byrne to give us his insights about how AI has grown into the surgical space and what is the impact of these technologies in the surgical environment.
Thank you, Sowmya. Good morning from Vancouver. Good evening in India. I'm a clinical professor of medicine here in Vancouver, but I'm also the CEO and founder of Satisfai Health and the founder of a joint venture, AI for GI, and we bring AI solutions to the gastroenterology and GI endoscopy space. So I'm delighted, Sowmya, that you asked that specific question because it carries on quite seamlessly from what Sergio was discussing around radiology. So of course, that radiology led the field in terms of AI to medicine. And of course, that's mainly static imaging. And that was maybe one of the barriers as to why AI was slower to develop in fields such as the live surgical field or the endoscopic world that I work in on a day-to-day basis. So that has changed in the last few years, where we can now bring AI to live interpretation. It's important to not just be able to interpret CT scans remotely or after the event to take away or minimize the human intervention, but during live procedures, whether endoscopic or surgical, to have lifetime diagnoses. So AI has already dramatically improved that in the last few years. So for example, we, through an AI for GI joint venture that I founded, have brought a lifetime colon cancer solution to that space. So in the live surgical field, there are tools now that will help the physician, firstly, to improve detection of polyps. We miss things all the time, and we need to improve and minimize that miss rate. And then when we see something, to determine, again, in lifetime, in less than a second, is this a precancerous lesion or not? In other words, do we need to remove it, or can we leave things alone? So the ability to do that live time so-called optical biopsy or virtual pathology is also critically important. It gives the ability to tell patients straight away what is or is not going on, so they're not waiting for days or weeks to have a follow-up. It minimizes the involvement of downstream pathology, for example. If you can do a live time, very accurate diagnosis in the surgical field, you can minimize the need for the pathologist to get involved. And it just changes how the patient flow happens a lot. So bringing away from the static field to the live surgical field is very important, and AI has dramatically improved that opportunity in the last few years. To do so, of course, as has been a common theme here throughout this last hour, access to data is critical. And the marriage here of Canadian and Indian groups to partner is a very powerful marriage. And it's not just a one-way AI expertise in Canada and data in India. Of course, it's both in both directions, but certainly as you've heard, in Canada, there's great AI hubs in Toronto, in Montreal, and in Vancouver. We have the technology superclusters. We have the scale AI supply chain supercluster, as you've heard. We have here in BC, we have the digital supercluster. The power of that kind of AI talent here, in combination with the incredible volume of data and the quality of data from India, makes that intersection so much more fruitful. So as again, another example, to get back to your question about surgery, we have recently come to a collaboration with AIG Hospital in Hyderabad, and that is the largest interventional surgical endoscopy unit in Asia. They do 500 endoscopic procedures a day. In BC, in the largest hospital where I work, we do 50 a day. So you can see the great difference in the volume there. And that center not only provides huge volume of data, it also provides huge quality of data. These are global leaders in the endoscopic surgical space. Dr. Nageshwar Reddy, who's the founder and chair of AIG Hospital, for example, was one of the, if not the pioneer in that endosurgical space, the move from open to laparoscopic to endoscopic surgery. So being able to bring AI solutions to that shows the great power of what Canada and India can do together. So we're very excited about that. And I think it's going to be transformative. And then really finally on that, that will allow us not just to democratize difficult surgical techniques. So again, Sergio said, you know, we don't trust medical students to do certain things, but we trust them to do stitching. Well, one barrier to doing a lot of this newer, minimally invasive surgery is that physicians don't know what they're looking at. So we have this great improved resolution and imaging on our screen, but we can't interpret how deep a lesion is, whether it's cancerous or not. If we can improve that information feedback to the physician, then we can democratize these surgical techniques more globally. So I think the ability to do that is very exciting, and hopefully that answers your question about the surgical field.
Yes, thank you, Michael. And it was insightful and kind of addresses exactly what we wanted to include in this discussion today. So now that we have discussed about AI, I strongly believe AI is only one part of all tools that are digital and are trying to support the transformation. So I would like to hear from Dante. So what are your views on tools that are digital and are used in hospitals, in your facilities, that actually kinds of supports the transformation of care delivery in the countries?
Thank you for the question, and thank you to all the panelists for all the incredible insight comments. I'm gonna actually talk a little bit about the how, because I think that's where this comment comes from. So we talked a lot about the what. It's the disruption of healthcare. So we saw content disrupted, we've seen retail disrupted, transportation coming along, and now we see healthcare being disrupted. And we talked about the why. So why do we need to do this? It's really is for humanity and prosperity and all the issues around policy and the why of the partnership that you're bringing together of these two countries. And I want to talk about the how. So COVID, what COVID did is it actually focused attention on problems, and it allowed the ability for us to innovate and to bring solutions and problems together with tremendous focus. And actually, that's the critical part of how you create these partnerships and how you disrupt systems and modernize new environments. So what inherently you need to be able to do is operating areas need to actually expose what their problem is to those innovating companies. As an example, when we were talking about machine learning, so you can think about the images of machine learning, and we have some projects happening on image recognition with COVID in our organization with Canadian companies that are doing AI. But actually what you can also do is look at the operation. So we looked at queuing theory of scans. So normally radiologists will read first in, they read the first one, but you can actually manipulate those queues to be able to read what is the most relevant scan, the highest risk scan, or the scan that it changes the operations in your hospital the most. So what's always really important is that the operators actually expose what the problem is that is most relevant for those innovating companies and those technologies to attack. There are dramatically accelerating technologies. We've talked about machine learning. There's precision medicine with genetics. There's multiple different, the Internet of Things. There's multiple different technologies coming, but you need that problem. And that problem needs to be on the operating environment. You also need an area where the company or the person coming in can actually work within that organization. And then you need the ability to be able to scale it through the variety of different areas. And this is one of the things that I think is a really great opportunity between in collaborating is what we've been able to do, and actually it's great to see our partners opportunity, New Brunswick here. We've been able to actually create edges or these operating nodes across the country from coast to coast, from Vancouver to Nova Scotia and beyond, of 15 or more operating groups, hospitals, clinics, regions that allow people to visualize those problems and move forward. And this is where I think in the how of our relationship, what we need to do is now create bridges that go, that bring us closer together so that Indian companies that with incredibly high potential can get access to data in West Toronto and Mississauga, which is a incredibly diverse area. Canadian companies that, like you've heard about, get access to Apollo in different areas, so that we expose our problems and we translate across, so that we can actually move those companies forward and scale them. We can learn from each other multiple different things. Our companies can come across, we can learn policy, and we can learn modernization. But there has to actually be a now and a how. And I think that's what this group, the next challenge is. How do we do this? What is our path to having $1 billion of trade and modernization in this sector? And actually our path to having 5 great companies cross over, and for you to work on our data and us to work on your data. It always starts with a conversation like this. It sometimes starts with people actually going across and having fellowships in different areas. But what we've learned in Canada, it's a small country in population, but a big company in geography. And so what we've been able to do is create nodes across the country. Those nodes teach each other and the relationships happen. And it starts with the exposing the problem. COVID exposed the problem. It created such clarity on that problem. And so what I would say to us now, our challenge is to take that what, that why, and make it how, and make it near. Let's create those partnerships. Let's create a couple bridges from New Brunswick over to Apollo and elsewhere. And then let's actually accelerate it by sharing our knowledge, sharing our people, and having our companies cross over in a very short period of time.
Thank you, Dante. That was very useful. Now I want to come back to Vinita again. Vinita, now that we understand how healthcare has transformed and how telehealth is penetrated, we have spoken enough about it. Now, do you think post-COVID, will it die its own death? Because there are many things that have happened and die its own death. But I wanted to highlight that we had conducted a survey, And from our survey, we understand that at least 60% of these users want to continue on telehealth platforms or virtual care. In fact, want to grow beyond these, current video consultation only aspects that most of the providers currently offer. They do want to move into the virtual care umbrella. Everything at home, everything at doorstep is what they are looking at. So where do you think the future of healthcare is moving towards?
So maybe I can say that we're actually going to see a very new normal in healthcare. I don't think it'll be 100% shift for everything to online care and telemedicine. Of course, the touch, the feel, the compassion, and the need to go and see your doctor, especially for secondary and tertiary treatments, is not going to go away. But like we have been discussing, I just got a very interesting message as I was talking to you, as I was listening to you all, that the entire metric of the way we look at healthcare system is going to get smashed. So for example, we talk of statistics like 1 doctor to 1,000 beds, the WHO standards for, having the doctors and nurses vis-a-vis beds. Now with telehealth, what's going to happen is these statistics become quite irrelevant. You may have a doctor attending to so many patients, and the turnaround time for the patients to, address their needs and teleconsult and see a doctor, everything is getting shortened and everything is becoming different. Everything could probably become more accurate also with AI tools and things like we're using blockchain. I was just going through a project that we are thinking of validating blockchain use for health insurance and the way we'll settle the claims. So everything is going to become very different now, because it was going towards that. But what's going to happen is that the entire metric, the entire telescope with which you look at providing healthcare is going to be now condensed into different versions of time management, different stats of number of doctors. I don't even think that's going to be more relevant. It's going to be more and more value care. And patients understand that. And people understand that, the fact that you're empowered in the palm of your hand, you don't have to keep, and COVID is not going anywhere, by the way, for another year and a half. I don't see vaccines covering all the populations. So I think there'll be many more innovative transformations, more fine tuning of how we cater to the patients. And all that would actually keep the whole momentum of telemedicine, digital health, teleconsultations, POCs, pharma going online pretty much on. I mean, that's what we are seeing as a trend.
Sure, thank you, Vinita, and we agree with that. So, coming from a consulting background, we do research on a day-to-day basis and we see what's transforming, what's happening. So we strongly believe that COVID-19 has accelerated the transformation of healthcare digitally, and it is going to stay. The impact that COVID could create, nothing else could create in the last 2 years, and that is how the digital transformation has kind of started and is likely to stay.
May I just step in here for just one thing? We have to be very careful when we talk of the digital transformation of healthcare. The entire segment of reskilling our healthcare, then to cater to this kind of demand, is going to be, for me, in my view, a huge challenge. It's not just about data. It's not just about, validating new AI tools, algorithms. It's also about skilling and reskilling the existing healthcare workforce, from doctors to nursing to paramedics, to be able to move with that transition.
Great, and we agree on that. There's already a question from the audience that is about how is digital transformation helping health providers to improve on their revenue cycle? So, would anybody on the panel want to answer that? If not, you can reach out to us. You can reach out to me, Bimal, and I will be happy to answer your question post this panel, because we would like to discuss the next aspects as well. So with that, we kind of understood where and what is happening in the healthcare space and how AI and other tools are transforming healthcare. We have made the beginning into the transformation. The best is yet to come in terms of the transformation, with COVID-19 continuing to stay at least for a few more months, a few more quarters. We definitely see the healthcare space to have more adoption of technologies, and acceleration of investments in R&D and newer products going forward. We definitely would see more collaboration between Canada and India, because Canada has been a hub for technological companies that are robust and efficient. So we can see those collaborations with Indian conglomerates, adopting them and making it scalable for the Indian audience. So it would be the same in terms of service provision and clinician provision to Canada in terms of potential and application usage in the country. So it is going to be a mutual win-win for both the countries. With that, I would now like to hand it over to Nadira to take it forward.
Yeah, so Shavik, I think you will probably this session,
Sure.
you would like to thank all the panelists.
Thank you, everyone. We now move on to our final section, where we have Dale Vandenborre, Digital Health Lead from Opportunities New Brunswick, and Mr. Vikram Jain, Trade Commissioner for Life Sciences at Trade Commissioner Services Canada. Dale, may I request you to go first on your perspectives?
Certainly, thank you very much. I'll start by saying this discussion and network of leaders that assembled today is just so validating. We as healthcare innovation leaders are onto something, and we're on a fruitful path to transforming an industry collaboratively. So I'm pleased to see our two countries coming together proactively, and I'm appreciative to have the opportunity to connect, be part of this session, and hear from the leaders and experts and role players shaping an industry. So as a healthcare IT professional working in an economic development agency, I've had the pleasure of hearing Dr. Morra say previously that never before the link between the economy and healthcare has been so obvious. And I couldn't agree more. And I'd like to spend a bit of time today talking about how the economy and healthcare are linked. And addressing the challenges highlights the need for this international collaboration that we're seeing on display here today. So economic development agencies like Opportunities New Brunswick and international business support organizations like ICBC, we really have an unprecedented opportunity to leverage this unique time and achieve something significant. The times are unprecedented, as we discussed, not just because of COVID, but because advances in technology are finally arriving at a point where technologies like AI, voice, machine learning, 3D printing, several of those mentioned today, are maturing and converging, allowing us to leverage those innovations that were previously not available. As well, high growth, high productivity, disruptive companies bringing new cost models. And there are more people with more access to knowledge than ever before are maturing through our education systems and coming out of those education systems, working in our industry. And then also because of COVID, we are seeing lowered barriers to entry, unprecedented funding, and an engaged and focused system side of stakeholders creating new forms and levels of collaboration. So jurisdictions around the globe are looking to solve similar challenges. The solutions like virtual care that had false inhibitors holding it back have now been unleashed. So just yesterday, Opportunities New Brunswick held an event with the International Forum of the Americas, and we're very fortunate to have thought leaders like Dr. Daniel Kraft, the co-founder of Singularity University and Exponential Medicine, Lucien Engelin, author of Augmented Health, and Zaina Kayat, co-author of The Future of Aging and one of the digital health leaders in Canada, together on a panel. And I believe it was Lucien that summed things up very well by saying, for years we've been pregnant with digital health, and now during an impressive pandemic, it came to life through a C-section. So we can send out links to that session actually if people are interested. But jurisdictions all across the globe are asking, how do we achieve better health outcomes with different and better cost models? Innovation and digitization do bring a promise of lighting a path to navigate to better economies. So economic agencies are becoming evangelists for health innovation, and because fixing healthcare in part fixes economies. So I'm from a small province on the east coast of Canada, New Brunswick, and we've worked very hard to bring together universities, researchers, political stakeholders, various health stakeholders, clinicians, technologists, investors, all together under a common goal, and really try to build a culture of innovation. And I think we must look at a similar makeup in our Indo-Canadian partnerships. It needs to be a community of several coming together with a common goal and multiple role players connected and contributing to advance the agenda. So it takes a community, and this network and the connection between India and Canada are groups like ICBC, Opportunities New Brunswick, Can Health, as Dante talked about. And Indian and Canadian companies are important parts of the solution. Apollo and Trillium Health, being sister agencies, are the examples that we need to really build upon. And we do have a great foundation to build upon. Already in New Brunswick, we are working with many Indian companies that have set up, like HCL, Set-In Technologies, Tech Mahindra, and Aditya Birla. So we look forward to continuing to foster our relationship and adding more companies to the list. Solving the problems we talked about today, like talent, ethics in healthcare, I think is a big one, and various challenges that come with transformation. So we can leverage common goals and common ethics, and that good foundation found uniquely between Indian and Canadian cultures. And with that, I'll hand it to Vikram.
Thank you. Thank you, ICBC team, for this opportunity. Let me try to summarize today's discussion. There are tremendous opportunities for Canadian and Indian companies to collaborate to find more efficient, effective, accessible, and affordable healthcare solutions to the following challenges: highly complex and fragmented delivery of health services, individual health records which are primarily manual, dire need to strengthen primary healthcare systems, shortage of medical professionals, particularly in rural areas in India, reskilling of nurses, paramedics, doctors, and research. Given these challenges, now let me highlight few specific areas where India and Canada can collaborate. One, medical education solutions and virtual simulation technologies. They offer a range of unique advantages for healthcare educators and facilitators to deepen knowledge and strengthen the procedural and patient care skills of their students, regardless of location. Example of Canadian companies active in this space: Cyber Patients. It is an interactive learning platform that lets doctors practice virtually, mimicking real-world experience. Canadian company CAE Healthcare provides solutions for simulation-based medical education that improve healthcare, clinical competency, and patient safety. 2, telehealth and mobile health. Use of wireless technology to support the treatment of chronic diseases, facilitate remote doctor-patient communication, and enhance patient adherence, help improve patient outcomes, and reduce healthcare costs. Examples of Canadian capabilities in this subsector: Seamless MD is a leading patient engagement and care management platform. They provide a technology solution to guide patients from preparation to recovery and monitor at-risk patients post-discharge. Canadian company Figure One has developed knowledge-sharing platform for healthcare professionals. Another Canadian company, Think Research, offers a secure cloud-based telemedicine platform called Virtual Care. It lets clinicians connect with patients over video, audio, and text. Third area, medical imaging software. Canada is among the world's leaders in diagnostic imaging, with particular strengths in interventional imaging, software development, and advanced imaging components. Global market players, including Siemens, GE Healthcare, Fujifilm Medical Systems, and Hologic are benefiting from Canadian capabilities to help deliver these solutions internationally. Calgary Scientific, Ramsoft, Interled Medical Systems are few names from Canada in this sector. Fourth area, healthcare data analytics. Healthcare generates massive amounts of data, patient information in electronic health records, diagnostic imaging, prescriptions, genomic profiles, insurance records, data from wearable devices, and personal data from social media. Aggregation and integration to make sense of this data provides deeper insights into populations and diseases and more personalized treatments. Drug development company Deep Genomics is using artificial intelligence to build a new universe of life-saving genetic therapies. Fifth area, general IT solutions. Example of Canadian capabilities. Optel Group, a leading supplier of track and trace technologies to some of the world's top pharmaceutical and consumer packaged goods companies, Optel provides a growing number of industries with innovative digital traceability solutions. D-Wave Systems provides systems, services, and software for quantum computing. Canadian company Blue Dot's Insight SaaS platform monitors and detects outbreaks for more than 150 different infectious diseases and pathogens in real time. Sixth area, digital mental health solutions. Mobio Interactive, the House of Purpose, Biomo Inc. are among several other Canadian companies that offer solutions in the mental wellness space. Seventh area, health information systems. Canadian company Populous Global Solutions provides data management technologies that enable health professionals, clinicians, and researchers to effectively collect, organize, access, and disseminate information. And I would like to end my remarks with that the Trade Commissioner Services, provincial governments, ICBC work very closely to promote bilateral trade relations and are there to assist companies from both the countries to facilitate collaboration opportunities of mutual interest. The Canadian Trade Commissioner Service is the strategic link to find the right Canadian partners to match Indian companies' specific requirements for high quality products, services, or technologies. Let a team of professionals connect you to the Canadian organizations best suited to meet your needs. Thank you, ICBC, for providing this platform. Shavik, over to you.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you, everyone. May I request Nadira ma'am to close the session?
So first of all, I'd really like to thank all our panelists, Vinita, Sergio, Dante, Morra, and Michael Byrne, and of course, Sowmya for moderating the panel. Thank you very much. I know that all of you have very busy schedule and you did give a lot of time to this. It extended beyond our, our proposed time because everybody had so much to say and it was very interesting to listen to all of you, very productive. And as I said earlier to Michelle and to Sangita, that this time of yours will not go in vain. Please see that we will take this forward. I'd also like to thank Dale, Joel, and Michael Rublik from New Brunswick, and we will work together and see how we can showcase to India what the opportunities in New Brunswick are, especially in this digital healthcare system, which is a very crucial point today. Vikram, thank you very much. What you have, your closing remarks have really been so good. I'm going to use this now as a yardstick because this is what you have summarized is exactly what we need today. What are the sectors that we need to collaborate between India and Canada, and which are the companies involved in it? And I think, as you said, the Trade Commissioner Services, both federal and provincial, and ICBC, we all work together towards a common end. And we would all, with our panelists who are here today, with their expertise, with their guidance, we can all develop a plan to see that these collaborations really take place and we can go forward. Today, this is not, as I said, it is not a luxury, it is a need to develop the healthcare system to the utmost, because we have realized that the world was not prepared for the COVID. It may not be prepared for other things, but we need to be prepared. So I just want to thank all of you again. Thank you to our listeners. If there are any questions you have, please let us know, write to us, and we will connect you with a relevant person whom you may be wanting to need information from. And so once again, thank you very much. Everybody stay safe, stay healthy. And I
Thank you.
both you and the attendants. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.